Welcome one and all to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. We've had some rains this weekend, and they're great for my lawn. I don't know if they're great for our homes or our offices. Things can pop up, but what we've learned, if we've listened to these messages, are whether it's a leak, whether it's something that progresses more than that, Water Cleanup of Florida will make sure it's gone from your home, and your home or office will look brand spanking new whenever they're done, because not only you can reach them 24/7 at 954-579-0356, but because they have licensed, insured, certified contractors on staff, it's one-stop shopping, and they do a fantastic job start to finish. Water Cleanup of Florida is where you want to go. WCUFL.com, WCUFL.com, at Water Cleanup FL on Twitter, Instagram, all the Facebook, all the socials. And again, 954-579-0356. Do you want to take my word for it? Believe me, my wife and I loved working with them. Most service industries, they get the job done. But when you deal with those companies, it is a pain in the rear. It was not a water cleanup. It actually was a joy. We would literally go, wow, that was amazing. You'd have the same experience with them. Check them out on Google if you want further advice, further tips, further proof of just how great Water Cleanup of Florida is. With over 75-star reviews, Water Cleanup of Florida, if you have the schmutz, believe me, they have the guts. The Miami Heat have always had the guts when it comes to the trade deadline. The question is, will they make a move? Will it be the right move, and how big of a move will it be? Talked with Sean Deveney, NBA Insider, NBA reporter, and author with Heavy.com and editor with Heavy.com today about the Miami Heat and the rest of the NBA around the trade deadline. Yes, the Kyrie Irving acquisition for the Dallas Mavericks. We touched on that. And talked with longtime NFL writer, senior NFL writer with Outkick.com, Jason Cole, a little bit about the Miami Dolphins here. The Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Many things happening, including a giant story in the NBA that transpired over the weekend and is a prelude to the trade deadline, which comes up on Thursday. Joining us right now on the program, one of our favorites when it comes to NBA coverage. Been doing it for a long, long time, a variety of outfits, including the Sporting News, and now with Heavy.com. Sean Deveney joins us here on the show. Sean, how are you, my friend? All right, we kind of missed you there, but I'm assuming you're doing fine. Good to have you on the program.
Sorry about that.
How are you about writing about matters of the occult? Because I would imagine it would require, certain capabilities in that genre, that area, to be able to cover a Kyrie Irving trade.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen next with Kyrie Irving, and he's very happy to be in Dallas now. Which is probably the worst thing that the Mavericks could hear, because whenever he's very happy to be in the place, it's only a matter of time before he clamors to get out of there. So what a big risk by the Mavericks. It's hard to see how this plays out well. I think in the short term it could, because the Western Conference is pretty wide open. That was one of the motivating factors for the Mavericks here. They can get back to the Western Conference. If you look at the West, it's really not very imposing at this point. So Dallas trying to throw its hat into the ring among the contenders. But, beyond this year, when you start to get into, okay, now you've got to pay Kyrie Irving. What do you pay him? Brooklyn had a big problem with how to structure a contract with him. Dallas is going to be in the same situation. So big risk for the Mavericks here.
Well, and I give you credit, Sean, because a lot of the time I see these reports and people look at stats and they forget reality, and Heat fans especially, because they want to move, right? The Heat are hovering around, and every time they look good, they look bad, and they're inconsistent and healthy. So they need offensive firepower, and Lowry's been a disaster. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want Kyrie Irving. I actually saw someone say, dang, the Mavs get Kyrie help. And I'm like, oh, not Kyrie, I'm sorry, get Luka help. And I'm like, who'd they get? I'm like, it wasn't Kyrie. I'm like, who has Kyrie ever helped? I don't understand, especially the last 6 years. I get it. You're trying to keep Luka happy. You're trying to show, look, Luka, we're not going to just stand pat. But, Kyrie, there's always a clock ticking of when he's going to Kyrie. Look, the Nets were playing well, and they were leaving him alone. And out of nowhere, I want to go. obviously by now it's not stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, and Kyrie was thinking long term in terms of, look, the Nets are not going to re-sign him. They're not going to give him the contract that he wanted, so he had to go somewhere where they could keep the bird rights, which is what allows you to spend over the salary cap. Yep. He had to go somewhere that would be willing to give him a contract in the summer, and that's what really motivated all of this. That he could look and see that he was not going to get paid this summer unless he wound up with a different team, and so that's from his point of view. That's what was behind all this, and I think the Nets kind of just we're glad to wash their hands of it. They get a couple of role players, and we'll see what happens next. I think the Nets are going to be a real interesting team to look at what they do down the stretch, and there's a lot of GMs, a lot of executives around the league who think that Kevin Durant is next. That ultimately they're going to say this whole thing has not worked out. Let's move Kevin Durant as well.
What is it, Sean Marks? He must have a pharmacy in his office. This guy's got to be undelauded. I mean, after what he's been through there, trying to figure out what to do. They fired 2 coaches because of this guy. I mean, they brought in a guy that had no experience. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you think back to the summer, one of the things that Kevin Durant wanted was Steve Nash and Sean Marks to be fired as a condition of him. I'm sure Sean Marks is thinking back and saying, why didn't you just fire me, man? Why didn't you just go ahead and do that?
Yeah. Just give me a blindfold and a last drag on a cigarette, man. I want out of here. That's enough. Kevin Durant, I mean, that leaves him alone there in Brooklyn. It did seem like when Durant and Kyrie were playing briefly together before Durant's latest injury, but I mean, they were in sync. They were running off, an incredible series of wins. And look, I mean, they still have an upside record in the Eastern Conference, even though they've been kind of a hybrid version of whatever it was that they were going to be with those 2 guys. But what happens to Durant now? I mean, most people are speculating, Sean Deveney, that that's going to be it for him in Brooklyn as well.
Yeah, I mean, they had the 12-game winning streak, and they really had looked like a team that was going to be a threat in the Eastern Conference. Now that they've reconstructed the team in such a way that they've got some pretty good role players around Kevin Durant. When you look at shooters like Joe Harris and Seth Curry, you've got some good defensive players like Royce O'Neal, and now they get Dorian Finney-Smith, who's a very good 3-and-D kind of player, and he fits very well with what Kevin Durant does. So they're hopeful that maybe they can make a run with the group as it is constructed. They're still trying to make another deal, maybe for a little more offensive punch, but we'll see what happens with that. But in the end, it's probably a second round team in the Eastern Conference playoffs at best. And considering that, they've got to look at what's happened over the last couple of years here and say, we were a happier franchise when we were young and up and coming, and Kenny Atkinson was the coach, and D'Angelo Russell was making an all-star team, all that. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to, really rebuilding with, we dipped our toe in the waters of this, bringing in star players. And let's go back to building the old-fashioned way. I think that's what Josiah, the owner, is most likely to turn next.
All right, a lot of different things, a lot of wheels turning, and of course Thursday the trade deadline. And usually when there's speculation, you probably experience this, Sean, and we've experienced it in a lot of different sports where everybody's saying, "Oh man, you're gonna see like a bloodbath at the trade deadline. Everybody's going to be in action," and then like nothing happens. Some scrub gets traded for 2 conditional second-round picks, in 2031. What do you think? I mean, I'm reading, speculation that as many as 60 players may be in play, and that a lot of teams want to do things. And then specific here to South Florida, do you anticipate, and is there any talk or conversation? I mean, there was some speculation the Heat might want Kyrie Irving. Do you anticipate them making some kind of move because they feel like they don't have the goods to win a championship right now?
Yeah, I mean they've been pretty active in trying to find something that they can make happen here, and at the very least, if it's a Jay Crowder or Kelly Olynyk, that's sort of like the the baseline move, and if they can get something more, if they can do a bigger move, then they're certainly going to do that. The problem is that they don't really have the goods. Kyle Lowry has not generated much interest, and the fact that
he's a cheeseburger away from retirement. It looks like it really is. Yeah.
Well, and
he's going Oliver Miller, this cat.
he's being paid for next season, so that makes him really tough to move along unless you're going to put in a whole bunch of picks, and they don't necessarily want to do that. So they're kind of stuck in the middle. Certainly they're looking at guys, John Collins, Fred VanVleet. If they could get somebody of that level, then they're certainly going to try. They just, like I said, they just don't really have the juice to go ahead and do that with what they've got on the roster. So I think you'll see them get, one of those recycled power forwards, whether it's Crowder or Olenek, somebody of that ilk, but not something bigger.
Lubie, he can't stomach the return of Olenek, even though he's distinguished himself since he left the Miami Heat as being a decent player. I don't think he was all that bad when he was with Miami.
He really wasn't.
But Lubie despises Kelly Olynyk. He doesn't like his haircut. I mean, the whole thing, the whole hippy-dippy thing, the Gonzaga connection. I mean, it's just pure, unadulterated ugliness. Chris Dedman was, somebody that supposedly the Heat wanted to ship, but he's deeper on the bench now than Udonis Haslem. As is the case, I think, with Duncan Robinson, who fell wildly into disfavor after, they gave him a big fat contract. So, or at least, for the type of player he is, he received a lot of money. But, it does appear to be somewhat unmovable right now. All right, we have to ask this question.
Yep.
Should we consider the Lakers as a threat to make any kind of a move in the playoffs?
Remember,
if indeed they get there. Right.
No.
No.
I mean, look.
No.
You're the only guy in anywhere associated with the NBA who
like
doesn't believe this.
Right.
Because everybody needs the Lakers to be in the finals, right? I mean,
yeah, right. It's hard to see that happening. I mean, they play better, and look, they should get into the playoffs, and they should have a chance at pulling off a first round upset just because you've got LeBron and if Anthony Davis is healthy. But if they get to the second round, Adam Silver will be counting his blessings. That would be really that is the height of success for the Lakers at this point. There's just not enough there. They've tried. I think the Kyrie thing. To get him moved for Russell Westbrook would have been their best bet. And the fact that they weren't able to do that. There's nothing else out there for Russell Westbrook. They don't want to give up those two picks they have, 27 and 29, that everybody thinks is going to be so valuable because the Lakers aren't going to be very good. Unless they give up those, they're not going to get anything that's going to help them in the short term. So they're kind of doomed to probably making the playoffs, but not making it past the first round.
How long does Greg Popovich endure the slings and arrows of outrageous misfortune? To watch this guy just get pummeled night after night. What do you think is going to happen? Is this the last go round for the great Greg Popovich?
It's a weird thing because when you talk to people around him, he's as happy coaching this group as he's been. He likes.
Is that right?
Wow. Young guys they have, yeah.
Is he drinking more, or what is the deal there? He always talked about having a glass of wine.
He's a wine enthusiast for sure. I don't know if he's got some Gatorade.
He must be
gargling
with Aquavelva or something. Yeah, I think this team's good.
Yeah, no, he does. He likes the teaching aspect. He likes bringing along some of the young guys that they've seen have some success. At some point he's going to have to step aside. He's going to have to hand over these reins. And as we get closer to the next Olympics, he's involved in that, of course. Then I think you'll see him consider maybe this is it. So this is very possibly the last year, but he's enjoying himself. Even if he passes the coaching range, he's going to stay with the Spurs. He's going to be involved with them going forward. He is enjoying himself to an extent here.
Unnoticed as the remnants of that Chinese spying balloon were falling to the earth, was Adam Silver jumping out of the NBA's offices when he saw who wasn't playing for Denver in this game against Minnesota. We've discussed this before, but it seems like it's getting even more outrageous.
It feels out of hand.
Where
it is, they have whether it was four healthy scratches,
four healthy, and in this business in New York, where LeBron and and Anthony Davis didn't play because they both had bad feet. And then they drink some Hudson River water and they play in the Garden the next night. They're fine.
Yeah,
they both go for like 39 points in an overtime game where they logged the entire minutes, of the ball game, like 53 minutes.
It's amazing how quickly the healing can come. That's for sure. But
when do they call foul on that? I mean, just it's a disgrace that the fans are subjected to this, paying full price, and maybe even imagine the Lakers Brooklyn ticket was probably not a cheap one. And then those two guys sit out and they play the next night at the Garden. It's a joke.
Yeah, and Steve Kerr has been banging the drum for a 72-game season for a while now, and I thought he was crazy. I didn't think that anyway that owners would get along with that, that they'd go along with that because you're sacrificing you're sacrificing income, right? So, but I think that the more that this happens, the more that becomes a reality. That might be where this is all heading. Is there's the science and all, and they'll say well, the science says we've got to rest these guys here and here and here and all of that, and that's fine. But if that's the case, then you got to just eliminate some games and stop making people pay to come to a game where nobody's playing.
That's nuts, right? What a disgrace that was. Especially, that Laker thing was particularly insulting because they both sit out against the Nets, who were compromised themselves. The Lakers supposedly, battling to try and get into, the postseason as the league would desire, and then both these guys were miraculously healed as if they had gone to Benny Hinn. The next day.
Don't forget that they have this flex pricing sort of thing. So you pay more to get the tickets to the Lakers game. So you're paying more to watch Lonnie Walker the fourth. And that's not what you were intended to do when you got.
We loved him at Miami. His brief stay here. I don't know. Did he ever play? I think he played one season here. Yeah, he was good. Sean, great stuff as always. We thank you so much for being with us, and looking forward to a lot of activity. Maybe we can catch up with you next week if there are any significant deals made besides this Kyrie Irving thing, and we'll see if Mark Cuban can survive Kyrie Irving. That'll be interesting to see if he ends up getting buried, ends up bankrupt after all of this, just because he loses his mind, kind of keep pace with this guy. Thanks so much for being with us. Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks a lot. Lubie's got something for you here, Jason.
Well, look, and I do want to talk about the game, but we've already started to have some off-season moves, head coaching and coordinators. Down here, there was a will they, won't they with Vic Fangio, but by the end of last week, it seemed like that had been sort of settled. What are your thoughts on the Dolphins moving on from Josh Boyer and getting someone that most people are heralding as a slam-dunk hire in Vic Fangio to coordinate their defense?
Well, look, Vic Fangio in a 3-4 defense is awesome. I think he'll get a lot out of Bradley Chubb. He has a lot of familiarity with him, but just generally, Vic knows what he's doing, and really, really knowledgeable guy. He's your perfect sort of curmudgeonly defensive coordinator. Who's always kind of miserable, and I appreciate that about him. He's a really good quality coach. Yeah, you have to have guys play hard, and you have to have good players. They seem to have good players. I don't know why they were so bad on the road last year. That's such a weird thing. That calls into question, what's going on? What's the communication like? What's the preparation like? Was Boyer ready for that? I don't know why things went so haywire. And also, immediately after the Chubb trade, they didn't get a lot out of Chubb. If you're going to pay him that kind of money and make that kind of trade for him, you need to get more out of him. So that's those are my two main concerns. But I think Fangio will be prepared for those two things and solve those two problems.
So Deveney, who's talked with us a lot in the last few weeks about the Miami Heat really being aggressive. He says they're still being aggressive. The problem is what they have available and what teams are looking for. He feels they will make some kind of a move. The Jay Crowder, veteran, undersized power forward, which honestly is probably going to be worth its weight in gold for the Miami Heat. They need a little bit more toughness. They need someone next to Bam that can help him defensively and that can also hit a three-pointer because their three-point shooting has not been good. They actually play really good defense. It's their offense that's struggled. They do need a point guard as well. It's just what's out there. The idea of a D'Angelo Russell sounds amazing. All these teams are asking for a lot. And you look, Kyrie Irving is a head case, but he's a great player. So the Mavs had to give up a decent amount. Current solid players to good players in a Dinwiddie, but also picks. The Heat don't have a lot of picks. And how much picks eventually in the next 4 or 5 years, you will have to go younger as Jimmy Butler is getting up in years. You can't really afford to give up a ton of picks. So I would love for the Heat to make a big move. It'd be amazing for them to make a big move. I don't know what big moves out there for what they have. And I know the Heat fans were disappointed that the Miami Heat didn't get Kyrie Irving. I was overjoyed. Kyrie Irving's a freaking joke at this point. He just is. The guy has a lot of talent. I never put him up there in the top 10 because he plays no defense and he doesn't pass and he doesn't rebound. But offensively, he's an elite scorer. So he was a top 15, 20 player when he plays. Problem is, the last 6 years, he doesn't play a lot. And he's always trying to do something socially. And I don't give a damn what you do socially off the court, but it actually gets in his way on the court. He doesn't play a lot. And he is meddlesome. And he literally is like a freaking bomb and implodes every organization he's with. They are all talented. Getting him is going to put him over the top. Going to make them a championship winner. No, it barely makes him a contender because he gets in the way. And it feels like he's going to do the same thing with Dallas. I definitely didn't want that here. So the Miami Heat culture is a big thing, and they're the kind of team, they year in, year out, get more out of less. They do need help this year. They do. But to go and get Kyrie Irving, no way. Very happy that he's in Dallas, in Texas. Stay far, far away from here. Miami Dolphins did. It's not official because they're trying to wait till after the Super Bowl, but Vic Fangio, by all accounts now, will be the Miami Dolphins defense coordinator. That across the league was a heralded choice, and Jason Cole agreed. He said, he's an old curmudgeon, but he's the kind of guy, look, you have the young, open-minded, offensive guru who's creative and wants to take this path and that path. Good. Let someone rein in McDaniel. Sometimes as we saw a lot this year, McDaniel they should have just ran it and been smart, not for entire games, but a play here, a play there. He just went for it, and it backfired. Vic Fangio is the kind of guy that can be the quote-unquote head coach of the defense and also get McDaniel's ear when he's going a little too, modern and analytical. Once in a while, it's okay to rein it in. And Cole liked that hire, as many people have. I'm excited about the hire, and I think that'll be the kind of thing to really get the best out of a Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Javon Holland, get Xavier Howard back into his form, and some of the other people they're going to bring in because they do need help. Fangio seems like the guy that can really do that. So excited about that hire. Excited about what's going to happen the rest of this week as the big game is on the horizon. We'll talk a lot about that. Check us out each and every morning, 7 to 9 on South Florida Live, the Defo Show with Lubie. Check out our national podcast. Today we talked with Joe Valeria, former offensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs, hosts a podcast on the Chiefs while being from Philadelphia and living now still in Philadelphia. So he's torn on the Super Bowl, has ties to the Eagles and to the Chiefs. He was a very fun and interesting conversation, so check that out. The Believe Network, BLEAV.com, search After Hours, and our South Florida content right here. The Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.